So, welcome, Liz.
Hello.
Great to have you.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, it's my absolute pleasure. We've been chatting for a long time, and I've got so many amazing people sitting in the background, and I think I must get them on the podcast, and then it takes me weeks and weeks, sometimes months, to get them on. But you're one of them, and you just you're doing some amazing stuff, and I'm always intrigued with you. Being the efficiency coach, and it's kind of like I think, God, a lot of people need that. God, a lot of people need that. So you agree, don't you?
It's funny that a lot of people do say that, and then they realize how hard it is, and they go, "Oh, really?" But I'm all about starting small with efficiencies and working out some really easy fixes to begin with to see where you are the most inefficient to start there, because that's the easiest. Let's do some quick wins and then keep going. But also I find some things that are really basic to me in terms of efficiency. People think, oh, that's just amazing. And I'm like, oh, that's so just different perspectives, and sometimes making an awareness of people's efficiencies and what they can do to help them out is also part of it as well.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I love what you just said then, that things that you think are just just part of your everyday. I was on a call last night and I was talking about that. I'm saying, yeah, but I'm talking about making statements about what you do, and I'm like, yeah, but that's like obvious, stating the obvious. And they're like, Karen, what you're not getting is just because you get it, it doesn't mean that everybody else is skilled in that. And I took a bit of a punch in the head with that last night. It's kind of like, that's so true. And we do expect that what we're good at, we kind of like, well, I don't understand why everyone's not doing this. And
absolutely, yeah. Or that they're like, just think that's amazing. And I remember when I first started out, I thought, right, I'm going to write a whole lot of efficiency tips. And I was kind of going that complicated level, and I shared them with some friends, and they were like, these are too hard. And so then I really, a bit like yourself, I was like, well, what do you mean? And they're like, I was like, what? Then we talked about some basic ones, and like, yeah, they're great. I'm like, really? So I think, it's taking that, sharing what your knowledge, and then actually taking that feedback on board as well to make sure that you connect with other people and what they really need and what they want, because everyone's busy. And so some of those simple things are the most profound, and they just need those little reminders, or they've done them in the past and then they're like, yeah, I used to do that, I need to bring that back into my life. One example I always use with clients is if they're busy, especially small businesses with home and family, and they're all in the same space, and we're trying to make them more efficient. And it's not also just about the hour they might save by getting a cleaner. It's the 10 hours they worry about not having a clean house for the Sunday and still not doing it. Whereas they know that the cleaner can come in on a Tuesday, pay them the money, and away they go. They've got a clean house for a few more days, and we repeat the process. And you're freeing up that 10 hours of worry rather than the 1 hour of time that they could have taken to clean, but they just don't do it. And then also working with them to say, well, why don't you want to do it? Because you don't like doing it. So let's outsource and become more efficient in the process.
Yeah. I read somewhere that, every time we switch topics or we worry about something, we're losing like 2 hours every time we just do a switch. I think we don't realize how much time gets squandered, by worrying about stuff and by procrastinating and by being overwhelmed. And it takes a lot. And when you said about, we were just going back to that previous topic, it's about being an expert. And I don't like the word expert. I think, it's a bit sucky, but people label you as that, and someone asked me last week, what's your expertise? And I said, I don't think I'm a bloody expert in anything. And they're like, what? And I think this is, I really do think that when we do something so well and so brilliantly and so easily, it does become expertise. So it
does, but I think we don't think of it like that, because it's just, we've grown up with it, or it's just been instilled in us, or we've learned it, and we didn't set out to be an expert. So I'm a bit the same as you. To be labelled as an expert, I'm like, oh no, this is just what I do, and this is how I help people, and this is what I want to share. And we also find that easy because that's in our wheelhouse. So the word expert yes, people can call me that, but I definitely don't call myself an efficiency expert. I'm not perfect, but I will try and help people to become more efficient, and that's all we can do. So
yeah, and it's only about being a step ahead of someone else, you know, that who needs your help, and that's all there is to it. But
absolutely. And I think with efficiency, it's also some people want to be more efficient than others. Some people are happy to be less efficient in some areas and more efficient in others. So it completely depends on the person. So one efficiency tip might not be relevant for you. It might be something you already do. And for another person, oh no, that's brilliant, and that's what they want to focus on for the start. So it's about tailoring that approach as well, and getting them to understand what's important to them, because I could suggest something that they're like, oh, I don't really, that's not important to me, so I'm not going to worry about that. And that's what I enjoy about my job as well, is getting to understand why people think they're inefficient, because sometimes people can think they're inefficient and I'm like, actually, you're not too bad compared to everyone else, or in relation to something. So yeah.
No, I love it. I love it. So you mentioned before, oh, you know, that's just what we've grown up with. That's just what we do, sort of. So take us back into your life, you know, like when you were younger. Did you grow up as an efficient little girl, or is it or tell us about you, like what's the journey to this?
Well, I think I did, because I grew up on a farm in New Zealand, in case you can't notice the accent. And so I always say to people, on a farm, you can't do things slowly or wrong, or you've got to do things well and quickly the first time. And I suppose it's just what we always instill. We're, you know, mum's quite efficient. There were 5 of us kids, so I suppose there wasn't time to be inefficient. She ran a pretty tight ship, and I suppose we've all grown up with that. And same with, I went to boarding school, so you had to fend for yourself, and were quite independent from the beginning. And you know, pack up every term, and then on the weekends and all that sort of stuff. So I think all that's growing as well. And then I think from high school, doing economics, and before you were talking about what our skills are, and I remember learning about specialization, and that's an old that's how the economy's grown, where people have done what they're good at, so that's what we're doing. And I've always liked to do things well, and being able to be smart about how I work. And one thing that I've always asked myself, is there a better way to do this? Not just for the sake of it, but for the, I don't want to waste my time. I don't want to be sitting around twiddling my thumbs just because, or I'm taking time longer than it should to do something, because let's move on to the next thing, and let's try and get some mundane jobs done quickly so we can move on to the more exciting things. And that's what that's the philosophy I take with small businesses and my clients, to say, right, let's try and get efficient in some really easy things, and then we can free up your time and your mind to do those harder tasks, or those thought-provoking tasks, or those tasks that never get done and left to the last minute. Strategy and the fun things as well. We don't. One thing I do say with efficiency, we don't have to be efficient all the time. It's a bit like being busy. We don't need to be busy all the time, but when we can be targeted about what we are efficient about, then it makes for a better life all round.
Yeah, I love it. What's your definition of efficiency?
I think it's really just not wasting time or resources, and also focusing on what needs to be done, so that priority as well. We can be efficient in getting stuff done, but if it's not the right things that we're doing and not effective, then that's a waste of time too. So I think efficiency and effectiveness go in hand, and doing the right things at the right time for that overall approach, and making sure that you're thinking about your long-term and short-term at the same time.
Yeah, I love that. And I also love what you said before about you wasting time. And I think as you get older too, you start really thinking about, God, every minute that goes, I can never have that back. And I'm noticing it. I'm nearly 60, and I'm really noticing time, because I'm thinking, I don't know how much time I've got left, and I'm not trying to be morbid about that, but I think, my God, every day I squander, I can't have back. And I think that mindset really pushes you towards more efficiency as well. Just thinking, well, we can't have back any time that we've thrown away, none. So we might as well be efficient.
And I think that,
go on.
Exactly. And also just bringing in the things, if you don't want to be doing it, there's probably someone out there that can do it, that does enjoy doing it. So let them do it.
Yeah. And that's it, isn't it? It's the same thing about being an expert or whatever. We think that because we don't like it, someone else won't like it. But other people love doing some stuff that we can't stand doing, and so we can bring joy to somebody else by giving it to them. No, I absolutely love it. Listen, you do. You've got to focus on regional and rural. Why is that? Like, you're really hell bent to help regional rural businesses. What's your passion for that?
I think just growing up rurally and living in Gippsland now, so still regionally. And I always say I have the best of both worlds, where I live in the country and still have, 2 hours from the city. I now do spend half my time in the city. So got myself an apartment in Melbourne, so can do both. But I think it's just about, sometimes the country and regional is always forgotten about, and just trying to get those business owners to strive to do the best they can and to be supported. A lot of people focus on the city, and there's some fabulous businesses in region or areas, and they're just as passionate about their business as what a city person might be, but sometimes there's not the opportunities. We don't have the population, so you've got to be smarter and a little bit different. And I just am passionate about helping those businesses to be the best they can be, and having that understanding. I've lived in the cities, I've lived in London, so I can do both, but having a real understanding of how tough it can be in region, around staffing, having to put your new business out to the area and trying to convince people of your value. I was listening to a podcast the other day where they just, same service, but the difference in charging rates, I think they're talking about PT services between city and regional, which is crazy. And I think that does just come down to a value base, and the luxuries that we have, but also people living in the country have a different take on lifestyle as well. So it's also, clients that I work with, when we're talking about efficiency, might not necessarily be about growing bigger or better. It might be about doing the same with less, or a little bit more with the same, which is a different approach. I think we are starting to value what we want in life, and that might not necessarily be more money. It might be more helping people, or employing more staff, or having more of an impact on the community. And creating some efficiencies to create that is what I'm passionate about. And I do love working with, face-to-face with clients, learning their story about why they're in business. And that's where I really get my kicks from, in terms of, I get to work with so many different businesses and be involved in them and be part of the team without being there every day.
Yeah, I love that. And isn't it funny that as well with creating efficiencies is that we when you have a small business, or when you're starting a startup, or when you're doing working for yourself, we do tend to work too many hours in the business. What we actually want is to have much more balance, and to have much more time with our family and that sort of stuff. And I know it's hit me many times. I've found myself at 10 o'clock at night still sitting there editing a podcast or something like that. And what I really want to do is be sitting out on the couch with my partner, but and I have got better at it. But I think when you're talking efficiencies, that's probably a really big thing, that where you can help people get their life back. And it might sound like a cliche, but it's not. It's such an important thing. And I think over the pandemic, we've really started questioning, what's important. We did think that hustle and grind was important, or growing the business was important, or this and that, but now we've sort of sat back and gone, what, my family is more important. My people I love is where I want to put more of my time. So I think the more efficient you are, the more time you can spend with those you care about.
Absolutely. And it's working out what they do want. I have clients that come to me and said, I want to work less hours. So we work through the strategy and brainstorm what they can do differently. And then they come through all these ideas. And then at the end of it, I'm like, hang on, you're still going to be working until midnight. So that's not going to work either. So it's about finding the boundaries, finding that balance, as you say, but then really working out what are their core values and what's really important to them. And then taking the leap of faith. Sometimes it might mean that they need to hire some staff because we can't do it all. We all, as business owners, already wear enough hats. And sometimes it's scary thinking, well, hang on, that means I've got to pay cash out to people when there's not, that cash might not be coming in right now. But then that allows you as a business owner to focus on those cash generating activities to be able to grow the business in the way that you want to. And I completely agree where I think COVID has settled that paradigm of working more hours means more money and all that sort of stuff, which isn't always true for now, and reevaluating. And, you know, those memes that go around on Facebook about how we all want to be business owners and have more freedom, and then yet we're working every night till midnight. And I'm the same as you, you know, I've only sort of this year made a real conscious effort to say, but I'm not working on the weekends. And the last couple of years have been fine because there's been nothing else to do, but now I want my life back. And just trying to juggle that and work out what that looks like and how that changes my business as well. That means now that I've had to, you know, not be available to clients 5 days a week because I'd sort of catch up on the weekend. Whereas now I'm like, no, Mondays are my days and Fridays are sort of client-free days as well. I'm putting those own boundaries for myself in place, and it's been working wonders. I think if you set that target of, you know, I'm not going to work past 6 o'clock and that's tea time, and then, you know, the nights yourself, and you feel a lot more recharged as well to get up and go the next morning. I think that in itself is an efficiency because you're going to be more focused when you do sit down at your desk or go and do work or whatever as well. So and again, with hiring staff, if you've got people that are depending on you to pay their wages, you need to make sure that your business is running so that money's coming in so that they can be paid and you can be paid as well. So that's a really big thing as well.
Yeah. I love that you're saying about blocking out time in your calendar, because I've done that too. I was just opening my whole calendar, used to, for podcasts, you know, and I'd have them at all at times. And now I'm like, no, it's a Monday or a Thursday, and that's all I'm available for it. And then Tuesdays and Wednesdays, I block right off for everything. You know, it's because then I can focus on programs. You know, like if I'm writing, if you're writing a program or you're doing sort of some prep for stuff, you actually need a block. You know, you can't just have interferences all the time. So I'm the same as you. I've cut off my weekends. There's no way unless it's a gig. You know, I do a lot of emceeing and that sort of stuff. So of course some of that's on weekends, but not just sitting there, you know, plugging away at the desk. I've really stopped that. So I love it. What do you reckon is the biggest thing that most people waste time on?
I reckon just procrastination, just not doing what they should be doing, you know, thinking about it without doing it, sort of saying, oh, I know I need to go and do that really important thing, whatever it might be. And then they go off and do something else that didn't really need to be done. Or, you know, I've got a few clients who are farmers and I'll go and shift the cows, or I'll go and check this. And I'm like, well, hang on, what are you doing? You know, and I think calling them out on that as well. People don't know they're doing it. And one thing I do get my clients to do at the start is do a week timetable, and they take around their piece of paper for 7 days and write down by the hour where they've spent their time, so we can see where they're wasting their time, or for the purpose of, if you're going to get another staff member in, what jobs can you batch up to give to someone else. And you know, people will think they only spend half an hour on emails a day, and all of a sudden one day they've spent 3 hours on emails or customer, you know. And so then trying to get some structure in place with some templates, or outsource, or, you know, delegating or outsourcing, those kind of things. The things that they're easy, but they're taking up a whole lot of time. And in the real strategic stuff, or the stuff that's going to bring in some more revenue or more projects or more collaborations, that's what's getting squeezed at the end. So sort of flipping it around. And I think also people waste time on things that they know they're not good at, that they know they should be delegating it, but they're just too scared to, or they don't want to lose the control. So I work with clients to be like, okay, we need to create a process to make sure that you're comfortable with that other person doing it, whoever that may be, because we don't then want to create a situation where they're then worried about that person doing that job exactly like they should be, or that they're going to go and redo it later on, because that defeats the whole purpose. So setting those up, and I always talk a lot about setting expectations for, you know, the clients and the staff both ways, and making sure everyone's on the same page at the beginning, because that saves a whole lot of time in the end. because we've got to be comfortable, and losing that control, especially when you've built up the business yourself. And, you know, no one's going to do it like you. We all know that, but they can do it 80, 90% of it. And so some of my clients are those typical perfectionists, and they need to let go of that a little bit. And that's not to decrease the quality or that strive for excellence. It's just being pragmatic about we can't do everything, and picking out what you do want to do, what brings you joy, what you're good at, and the rest of the stuff someone else needs to do.
Yeah. Sometimes it's hard, isn't it? Because, you know, one of my flaws is that I need to get some flyers made up, you know, but where I'm getting stuck is that I've got to find the time to actually decide what I want on the flyers. You know, I need to sort of gather some information. I can't just say to someone, make me a flyer, can you? You know, because they're like, what do you want on it? And I'm like, I don't know yet. So, you know, it's little things like that when you run a business too.
But I think something like, absolutely, but I think something like that, if you've got a designer in mind, go to them and say, right, I want to do this flyer, and get them to direct you what they need. So they'll say, okay, I need the copy, I need the words. And then you say to them, get them to set the deadline. And so say, right, when do you want it by? And they'll say Friday next week. And you're like, right. That's one thing that I get people to do, is either self-imposed deadlines or work with someone else in that instance, get them to set a deadline, and I bet you'll do it.
All right, you're on. I'm going to do that, because I've been I've got it sitting here on my desk. You know, get flyers done, and it's like, I'll come back to that. So thank you. You give me a prompt.
Or the other thing to do with something like that, if you've got a task that you've been putting off, and you know deep down it's probably going to take you 15 minutes, half an hour to write those words, and just block off, you know, I always sort of say 2 15-minute blocks, maybe one tomorrow and one next week, and you've at least started it, and then you'll get it done as well. And don't set too many of those tasks in a week. Sort of pick 2 or 3 things of that week at the start of the week and say, right, by Friday or even by Thursday, I always say take a day off the deadline, because if you haven't done it, you've still got a day to do it. And then by the end of Friday, you're like, cool, I did those 3 things. I didn't care about anything else. They were my priority for the week. So setting yourself up, and I think efficiency is also about planning. So planning out your month, planning out your week, planning out your day, on those little snippets of time. And we know things go wrong, you know, you can over plan, and then we don't want to get frustrated that, oh, well, I ended up having a longer lunch, so that hour that was planned for that particular thing didn't happen. We need to be flexible and adaptable, but at least setting that intention of, I'm going to get these 3 things done today or this week, can be really powerful. And the accountability, that's what I say to people. I provide the accountability. I'm not going to do the work for you. I'm going to help you and encourage you and plan it out with you, and really get to the nitty gritty of what you need to be doing and what's best for your business, based on your goals and what you want to achieve. But having that accountability, because otherwise we'll do it when we're working for someone else. Someone sets a deadline and you work hard to get it done. And in a small business, sometimes there aren't deadlines. Sometimes there are, for some of it, and then some things there aren't. So we need to be self-imposing some of those deadlines. But again, some people don't work like that. I work better to a deadline. And if I've got it booked in, and if there's someone else there with me, or I know that someone's relying on me, I'll definitely do it. And then there's other things, like I'm probably guilty as well. I've got some brochures that I need to write up, and you know, and I know that once I do it, but I don't know if it's a fear thing or if it's just that it's the actual task of having to write about what I do. And sometimes it is easier to give it to someone else. And ironically, I'm quite good at reviewing stuff, but not so good at writing stuff from the start. So again, it depends on what you are good at. And even with back to your flyer example, even just having a discussion with the designer saying, hey, look, I don't really know what to write. If they, you know, just do it together. Just say, look, can we sit down for 10 minutes? Because they might say, look, we only need 10 words in a picture. And you're like, oh, okay. Wasn't that hard?
Yeah, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it because, you know, I promised her, I sent her a text, you know, a month ago saying, I'll send you the stuff. And I still haven't done it. So, yeah, maybe you and I need to go to the same one so that I will get it done. That's good. So what about to-do lists? What do you reckon about that?
Well, I reckon a to-do list, unless it's written down, it's not on your to-do list. There are so many people that keep their to-do list in their head. And I think, there's a lot of research around the catharticness of actually writing it down and getting out of your head. And then also having the list in front of you to visually see, righto, what do I need to do? I always say to people, you need to be planning out what you want to do for the month, week, and then break each day. At the end of each day for the next day, say, right, what have I finished today? What have I not finished? What's on the list for tomorrow? And looking ahead and then putting it away. And then, starting that day with, here's my list. Some people start their day with the hardest thing. I personally don't do that. I like to tick off a couple of really easy things. Yep. My easy thing, if I'm sometimes not motivated, I'll go into Xero, my finances, being an accountant, and I'll just quickly, I've got a couple of clients that I do their bookkeeping for, or even my own. I'll just go in and do 5 minutes, and that'll get me going. So I'm like, cool, sweet, done that, next thing. And it all compounds as well. And then ticking it off is off the list. So you can either cross it out or highlight it once it's finished. So at the end of the day or at the end of the week, you have a really colourful page of, oh, look what I've done. And there might only be a couple of things to move on to next week's list. And being kind to yourself, I think I always sort of say to people, sometimes I might sound a little bit bossy and you need to do this, this, and this. I'm not going to come back to you and be like, why didn't you do all of this? As long as you know why it wasn't done, or, you're okay with it not being done and it can go into next week. But then again, you can put little techniques in, like if it's gone from 1 week to the next week and then the next week, like 3 times, it needs to go on the absolute priority list. Or say to yourself, how urgent or how valuable is that task? Because it might be that it's actually not needed at all, or can someone else do it as well? So it's having those prompts for yourself to really evaluate what needs to be done, and when and who by. People have got staff members that have got a lot more skills than they've been hired for, and we need to utilize them as well. So I'm a big believer of having your team meetings, even if it's 5-10 minutes every day or once a week or something, so that they know what you're working on, you know what they're working on, and then everyone's just happier. And then if people don't have work, or they've got a bit of downtime, or they're waiting for something, there's that encouragement to come and ask for more work or to help someone else out. So I think that's really important. I think that's one thing that's not done in small business as well as in corporate. And that's what I'm trying to encourage as well, is getting everyone working as a team. It's not just the owners and the staff, you're all one team and you're all trying to strive for the same thing and work together. And that'll create efficiencies in the first place, because if people don't know what someone else is doing, you can end up doubling up, you can end up stuff being missed and mistakes being made, and then that can have a detrimental flow-on effect to the rest of your business as well.
Yeah. God, there was so much in that. But I love I love it all actually. But I love the start with little tasks. That's what I do. I always tick off 3 or 4 things at the start, and it makes me feel like I'm on top of it. It makes me feel like, wow, look at everything I've achieved so far. And then I look at the big thing and think, oh God, all right, I've got to get that one done. And it's editing podcasts, people don't realize this, but every single podcast takes me about 8 to 10 hours, every single podcast. By the time I plan it, record it, do the edits, upload it. And it's, that's one of my big tasks that I look at every day and think, oh God, geez, damn.
There are people that do editing for podcasts that you could outsource to.
Yes, I know that, but there's a reason I don't, but we won't go into that. There's a reason I don't, but anyway, and I will one day, but right now there's a big now. So before you start telling me off, the other part to business is you're talking about, teams and being overwhelmed and, raising capital and raising money and that sort of stuff. And one of the ways we can get more money for our business, is through grants. And a lot of people are, including myself, the word grants puts me off. It kind of like, I think, oh my God, Father, I could not be bothered doing that, and I bet I'm missing out on a lot of opportunities, and there's going to be a lot of people like me who are also missing out. And so I know that you've sort of started you've moved your business a little bit so that you're really, really focusing a lot on helping people with grant writing and that. And tell us more about that, because it is something a lot of people dismiss. It really is.
It is, yeah. So grants, I'm pretty fortunate. I was in a grants team for a couple of state government organisations, and so I've been on both sides of the grant application process, writing them and assessing them. And I suppose it's just something that I really enjoy from a business perspective, because it's one way for me to really understand how a business operates, what they want to do, how they want to grow. And, you know, grants are one of those funny things. There's some people that just, as you say, completely dismiss them. And then there's other people that actually completely rely on them to run their business. So we've got businesses at both ends of the spectrum. And it's really, the way I see it is they're a bonus to your business, but it's about being ready for those grants as well. So that's from knowing what grants are available and keeping up to date with that. So I've actually just created a community group in my Facebook to keep people up to date with grants, called the Efficient Community Group. And that's on my Facebook page. And there are so many grants out there, but they're also not always applicable to your business. So it's a bit of a minefield. And that's where, you know, I will use the word, my expertise can help people to work out what grants are going to be best to go for, because it can be a waste of time. And, you know, part of my grant writing services is to do that evaluation with a client at the start to say, right, what do you think your project might be? Does it fit the criteria? Do I think they've got a good chance of being approved and successful in this grant? And then we go from there. I also, you know, have just created a 7-step process of writing successful grant applications. And the feedback I'm getting from that is people aren't planning the grant applications out like they should be. And sometimes the grants are only open for about 4 weeks, which is not a lot of time. And that can be for some of the big ones as well, where you've got to get quotes, you've got to get project plans, you've got to get designs. And I've had people ring up the night before grants are due and say, can you help me? And I've just unfortunately had to say no, because it's just not possible. I approach grant writing a bit like applying for a job. You know, you've got to do your research, you've got to read those criteria, and then you've got to know what your project is in your business and how it's all going to work out. I've also got a program where I work with businesses to get ready for those grants. So even when there's not a grant right now, we'll look at the projects that they might have in their pipeline or in their growth plans. We'll actually plan out those projects, go and get the quotes, go and build those relationships with the collaborators, other businesses, people that are going to benefit from that project, so that when the grant does come out, or if there is one that's appropriate, they're ready to go. Because also some grants are on first in, first come basis, and people are, you know, working towards that deadline, but sometimes it's just not possible. And we never know, grants are just so unknown. We never know when they're going to come out. Just because they did them last year doesn't mean that they're going to do them this year. Sometimes, as I say, there'll only be a 4-week window. And other times we also don't know how much funds are available. So if they might be giving away $25,000 grants, but is there going to be 4 lots of that? Is there 10 lots? And, you know, we're already busy. We're already wearing a million hats in the business. And sometimes people just don't have the time and energy to do the application. And it's quite a reflective process as well. And that's what I enjoy, because I'm asking businesses to, you know, evaluate what their business is doing, where it's been, and they've never had to answer things like that before. And so I find it a really enjoyable process. And, you know, we can't get too caught up in the outcome sometimes, because we can do a great application with everything and tick all the boxes, and we just don't know what the competition. So it's pretty competitive. So my analogy or philosophy for grant writing is to be ready. And that's what my program focuses on, to be ready so that when a grant comes out, we can be ready to go and, you know, hopefully be successful, because it does take time. They can't be rushed. I've got a client at the moment where we've got 2 months, which is about the right time. That's a grant that's been open for a while, or it's a recurring one with a couple of different deadlines. So that one we could pre-plan for a little bit more, but more often than not, they're like 4 to 6 weeks, which is not a lot of time. No. When you're on top of everything else. So I like to say I take some of that stress away and probably cause more stress as well, because at the end of the day, the businesses have all the information. I just need to extract it out of them and write it in a way that will give them the best shot. And also that's, I probably would say that's a pretty efficient process, because I will go through the application form and say, this is what we need, this is when we need it, and turn the grant writing into a whole project in itself. And sometimes people in my readiness program might come to the conclusion of that program and think, well, hang on, this isn't going to cost as much as I thought it was, or actually the expected returns are way more than I thought. I can find the funds through other means as well, and not just relying on the grants, because they are a bonus, and you know, you've got to be in to win. If they're there, absolutely apply for them. But sometimes if it's going to cause more stress than and if you don't have the time, then it's also not worth it. And I think, you know, there's some disdain against the grants as well, because you put the grant application in, you've done a proposed project plan, you then wait the 3 months until, you know, and you can't start until they say so, and if they say no, then you've lost 3 months, and you know, all that kind of stuff as well. So they're definitely not designed with a small business in mind, which is unfortunate, but we just need to work around that and do the best we can. And that's why I've really taken the approach of being ready, so that you can make your own decisions as a business owner. And same with forging those relationships with other businesses. You might actually, you know, pull your funds and go, well, hang on, we can do this together, we don't need a grant. And
I think even if you don't win it, even if you don't win the grant, just going through that process of, like you said, you know, the reflective process, and pulling out information about my business that I had in my head and I've never even thought about before. You know, it's
absolutely,
that information is valuable.
Absolutely. Well, even you can copy and paste some of it and put on your website, you know, because I've answered the questions in the grants. Some of these questions people have never asked themselves within their business. And the good thing is, what I like about grants is I know nothing about your business. So you have to, you know, so you have to assume I know nothing, because I actually do know nothing. And they've got to go right back to basics. And that's really difficult for some people, because they've just never done it. And that's where the gold is, because then they can see how far they've come. They can see, you know, the benefits. And also, you know, as you say, the grant, even if you're not successful, can be used for so many other purposes. And even turning it into a proposal to go to another funder or go to another, you know, potential investor to say, look, we've got this project, we really think it stacks up, you know, and it's not about a grant. So it is all about the process. And that's what I enjoy as well. So, you know, and the grant is the bonus.
Well, you've shifted my thinking on that, because, you know, I would occasionally think, I every now and then I get on a bender. Maybe I didn't get a grant to do that. And then I start scouring the grants. And by the time I've been in it an hour, I'm like, oh, no, you know, because everyone you look at, like, oh no, that's New South Wales. Oh no, that's only for farmers. Oh no, that one's. And then you think, I can't do it anymore. So you've turned my thinking around, because the fact that, you know, all that information is just so useful, as you said, in so many areas of your business. So yeah, thanks for that. You've turned my thinking around on a couple. That's why I do podcasts, because I get the advantage of turning my thinking around. But you know, I absolutely love it. So what tips have you got overall? Let me give you my get off the bench question. What's the number one thing you think that people need to do today to get themselves back on the wagon? Or, you know, because we've got so much overwhelm at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. You know? My number one tip, and for some people this might sound really basic and really obvious, and other people might be, is have one planner. So I don't care whether it's a paper diary or your computer or your phone or on the wall, but just have one planner that has everything on it, that is the one source of truth, so that you can't miss appointments, you can't, you know where the kids are going, everyone knows where mum is and all that sort of stuff. just somewhere, just one, because then we start going, oh, hang on, I've double booked, and then you've got to reschedule, or you've missed that appointment, or you've paid that money, or you've forgotten to pick someone up, or whatever it might be. But just to create a sense of, to reduce that overwhelm of everything that's going on, is having one planner. And I don't care how it is, it's just one planner that works for you. And you have, made that is the one source of truth. So I still at the moment use a little paper diary, because that's what works for me. And that's, if it's not in the diary, it's not an appointment. But that is my number one basic tip in the world of, we're always on our phones, we're always rushing, and just knowing where it is, the place to look for where I should be is that one planner.
I love that. I have to use two. I have to use my online calendar, because people book in podcasts and people book in mentoring and stuff like that. So I have to use that, but I transfer it all over to, and I'll just swing this quick because I don't want anyone to see it, but quickly onto it. I don't want everyone reading all the names on it, but I always have that, and I have a week printed out at a time, and I put all my appointments on there and everything I need to do for the day, and it's all on the one thing. And so it makes a hell of a difference, because it's that visual. Oh shit, I've got something coming up at 1, I've got something coming up at 8, I've got something, and it gets you straight away. Oh God, I've got to go down, got to go shopping. And it's, I agree with you.
And I think efficiency is all about focus. So trying to create that focus, and if you were, so you've got 2 because that makes sense and that works for you and that's what you need, because you've also got to think of your audience for what we do. But knowing where that is the most important thing. If you had that in 3 different places, you wouldn't know where you're at, whereas that piece of paper is gold. It goes everywhere with you, and works. And so that's my number one efficiency tip, and then go from there.
I absolutely love it. And I don't use the online calendar. I only check it first thing in the morning or when an appointment comes in, and then otherwise it's shut down. And this is a place. But I love that tip. And I'm really a big paper person, and not printing out tons and tons of paper, but just that visual thing to me is excruciatingly important to me. And same with hard copy books. I can't get into the ebooks, but Liz, I've absolutely loved this conversation. You've given me some you've given me some great things to think about. And I think that there's going to be other people listening to this thinking, oh my God, I never thought about that. That's such a good thing. So people can come to you for, to help make their business more efficient. And do you work with individuals as well, just to straighten their life out?
Well, it's interesting you say that, because when I work with business owners, we actually look at their personal lives too. I don't segregate them. So, a lot of my efficiency tips can work for personal as well. So like you, I do mentoring sessions as well. You can book on my website, and they can definitely be for an individual. I don't discriminate whether people have got a business or not, because we're all busy. And I just want people to be as efficient as they can be in whatever they're doing.
I think that's wonderful. So good. So if you need some efficiency help, get onto Liz's website. And that's my next question. My final question, where can people find you?
So I've got Facebook and Insta, and my website is www.theefficiencycoach.com.au.
Perfect. And also LinkedIn. So Liz Fleming on LinkedIn. So I have absolutely loved this conversation. Thank you so much for joining us. And you make it sound so bloody simple. And you got me really inspired to go and double check a few things that I'm doing that I could be doing better.
Well, that's great. Thanks for having me today. I've enjoyed it as well. And I suppose we just love what we do, and it becomes easy to us, and I just want to share that with people and work with as many people as I can to make them more efficient.
Yep, I agree. And when people are happy, we make a better world, and that's what I'm about. So absolutely love it. So all right, well, thank you, and I can't wait to catch up in person eventually. This now that we can move around, but can't wait for that. So
absolutely, thank you.
Beautiful. Thanks. See ya.